Oh, hello. Fancy seeing you here on a Monday morning, but glad you could join us. Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week we will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their businesses to success in an ever-competitive business climate. So pour yourself a hot cup and enjoy the show.
Welcome to another episode of Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Today I have a repeat guest on today. His name is Bryon McCartney, and he is a managing partner and the chief idea guy at Arcmark, pronounced Arcmark, architect branding and marketing in Estero, Florida. Bryon, thanks for being on the show again today.
Hey, Lance, it's great to be back. I really appreciate you inviting me back, and I'm looking forward to our talk today.
Yeah, I love the topics you're going to talk about. I just thought it was so helpful because, as you know, we do this podcast to try to help people out and help people grow and share and care and all that sort of thing. So let's get into it with tell us how and why you got started with virtual networking and business development.
Yeah, so I think it was about 3 years ago. I was one of these people that I just got involved in a lot of different things. I was on the board at the chamber. I was running kind of like an entrepreneurial networking group. I was in a number of different networking groups, trying to meet new people, build relationships, and grow my business. But I was working with a business coach at the time. We had just started working together, and he was asking me, how was I spending my time? And when I did a kind of review of my schedule and my calendar, I realized that with, if you included travel, I was doing 15 to 30 hours a month out of the office, trying to do face-to-face networking, basically. And what I realized is that I just wasn't getting a real solid ROI from that. It was hit or miss. You go to events, you see some people, usually they're the same people that you see every month. And, it just wasn't a really effective or strategic way to build those relationships, to build the relationships with the people I wanted to work with, which is architects. So I just put a stop to it. And that's when I started looking at social media. And I, instead of going out and about and getting face-to-face with people, I started building relationships online. And in particular, I was using LinkedIn quite a lot. But it was, and I wasn't trying to sell. I was just trying to really start those conversations. And that's kind of how I got started. I think why I continue to do it is because of the results I get. On average, every month, I'm connecting with 100 to 200 new people, not just prospective clients, but people like yourself, people who can help me get the word out about what I do, people who I can partner with and collaborate with. But like in those first 3 months of really doing this in a focused way, I connected with 600 new prospects. I got on 3 podcasts. I did an Entre Architect webinar with Mark LePage. And then I also was able to partner with a couple of chapters of the AIA and SMPS to provide content for them. So that's kind of the how and why.
Beautiful. Yeah. What is one thing I thought about while you were speaking there was, what do you think is like one of the biggest challenges of somebody who tries to do what you try to do? It doesn't matter what sector it's in necessarily. They could be any variety of businesses or people they're trying to connect with, about actually turning them into clients. What was like one of the biggest lessons you learned right away and pivoted from, and then therefore turn those into success stories?
Well, I think part of it comes down to, when I was networking face to face, even if I was going to an event where, like let's say I was going to an AIA event or something like that, It's really hard to communicate your authority and to kind of, position yourself as an expert when you're just sitting there talking to somebody, right? So one of the advantages, I think, or one of the things that I think helps when you're networking through social media is that you have that ability to share valuable content, to share valuable insights, to show people that you are well connected, that, if you get people commenting and liking and sharing your content, and those people are influential themselves, that influence rubs off on you, and that gives you kind of this position of authority. So then when you do try to go connect with people, people like to check you out. They like to see what you're doing and stuff like that. And when they see that you're doing valuable stuff and you're connected with cool people, authorities that they respect, they're really more likely to connect with you. And I think that's, like you asked, what's the challenge? The challenge is not doing the opposite of that, like just trying to connect with people randomly and not really having any kind of clear reason why you're trying to connect with them. I see that a lot. People just sending me LinkedIn connection requests with no explanation of why they're trying to connect with me.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. Yeah, because I'm on LinkedIn. That's how you and I got in touch with each other, was LinkedIn. I've been a very early LinkedIn adopter. And that's one of the things I've noticed in the past maybe 6 to 12 months is that there's much more a concerted effort from people that are trying to connect with me. I actually don't send out too many requests anymore. If there's more people trying to come to me because of inside the firm and kind of everything else. But they at least have a good reason for why. So I appreciate that. What do you think are the biggest advantages of virtual networking, and maybe one of the biggest disadvantages?
Well, I think one of the biggest advantages is just look where we're at right now. We've got just today, I think the World Health Organization announced that COVID-19 is a world pandemic. At least that's a headline I saw pop up on my smartphone. And so we're in this situation where suddenly it's becoming risky to do business face-to-face. And so I think if you don't have a good backup plan to that, that's certainly a risk for your business. So that's definitely an advantage, being able to connect with people virtually, especially in the times that we're in right now. Some of the other things I'll mention that I like about virtual networking as well, like I mentioned, there's less running around. I used to spend, 15, 30 hours a month networking. And a lot of that time was just spent in my car trying to get from event to event. And that's not very productive time. So I've eliminated that pretty much. I still go to some events, but I'm much more selective. The other thing about virtual networking is that certain parts of it can be automated, like scheduling, right? I have a scheduler tool. I think you use one as well, like Calendly, or the one I use is Book Like a Boss. And I just have a page that I can direct people to. Hey, go find a time and date on my calendar that works for you. And so that makes it really easy, right? And that's the point, is that you just want to make it easy for people. I think some of the cons, right? I think some people just aren't accustomed to virtual networking. Some of the technology might be challenging for them. And that's one thing you have to pay attention to, is that you have to make it easy for people. So I always try to provide really clear instructions. I try to just say, here, step by step, this is what you need to do if there's technology issues involved. And I think some of what you were getting at too is that a lot more people are using platforms like LinkedIn, and some people are just doing it in a very poor way. So I think that's also a con, is that we're seeing more people kind of like jump on the bandwagon and try to use LinkedIn to monetize and basically do sales on LinkedIn. I never try to sell on LinkedIn. I'm not trying to directly sell, or I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible. I'm trying to really provide value at first, and that's my main thing. I'm trying to earn people's trust first and try to provide value. So I think those are, if you ask me the pros and cons, I think those are kind of the things that I would point to.
Yeah. You talk about, so you already touched on some tools. You're right. I use Calendly. I think it is, for me, it's been just a game changer. I did have one sort of lesson that I sort of learned, and it was from a Facebook friend, totally not a professional. It's a personal connection. And they said they thought it was really douchey to just send somebody a calendar link like that. And I go, well, for me, it gave me pause and made me think like, okay, you still have, I think with the catch-22 with these automated systems, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like you still have to add a personal touch to it. Yeah. So how was one way that you sort of do that, which kind of leads to my other question about like, how do you reach out to people without sort of sounding sleazy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is kind of it's definitely something you want to avoid. You want to leave a good taste. You don't want people to have like an immediate impression of you as like just coming on and trying to sell them on something. I think with your friend's point, there's always going to be somebody who says, "Oh, I don't like that," or that doesn't work for me. I think that's completely fine. In my experience, those have been few and far between. Yeah, I've had some people that were like, "Hey, can we just have a phone call?" I try to accommodate that if somebody reacts that way. But I have found more often than not, people really appreciate having a tool like that because it eliminates a lot of the back and forth. It's like, okay, well, are you available this date and this? It's just like they can go, they can see when I'm available. Granted, if one of those times doesn't work, they can always. I always tell people, hey, if you don't see a time that works for you, just let me know, and I'll look and see if there's other times that I can be available for you. I think that's really part of it. I think the part you talk about, like not being sleazy. Here's the thing, for us at least, I usually don't try to, I'm not trying to approach most people as a sales opportunity. We've done, we've learned a lot as we've kind of done this type of approach, and there's some things that work and there's some things that don't work. I think some of the things that work are, first of all, our approach is that we're trying to provide value. So we stated, at the end of the year last year, we kind of stated this goal internally, and we've talked about this externally as well. We want to help 100,000 architects by the year 2030. So our goal really is to help elevate the industry. That's why I like talking to people like you, and I like talking to people like Mark LePage and others in the industry that are elevating the industry. And so for me, that's the bigger goal. So I usually try to lead with that. The second thing I do is I try, when I'm reaching out to people, I share that goal, but I also share value. Like I point them to articles and resources, and maybe I've mentioned your podcast many times as well. So I'm trying to provide them relevant and helpful stuff rather than just saying, hey, I've got this service I can sell you, so why don't you work with me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, just, I mean, the idea is social media. So if you're putting out articles and content and information and help, people are just going to gravitate towards you. It's so funny. Like we actually have, I think, 3 listeners now to our podcast over the past 3 years that have come to us, 4 actually, and they have either referred us to other clients, and then or they've come to us and they said, can you help me out with drafting work? And we're like, yeah. I mean, it's actually, so it all comes around at the end. I think, people gravitate towards that kind of like people that are giving information, free and willing and trying to elevate like you talked about. So thanks also for telling people about Inside the Firm. That's great. People that are listening, though, what kind of advice would you give them to how they could start using LinkedIn to connect with prospects? And Bryon, since we've talked, we've launched Monday Morning Coffee, and our audience has grown to where it's not just architects anymore. It is a lot broader entrepreneur audience. So what are some ways they could do that?
Well, when we work with clients on how to implement our system, what we really focus on first is being really crystal clear about who it is you're trying to connect with. And this is you talked about some of the some people are kind of like spammy or whatever. And often what I find is that when I get messages from people like that, it's like they've never even looked at my profile. They've never even tried to figure out who I am. And if you're gonna use social media to attract clients, or if you're going to try to use it to attract listeners for your podcast, or maybe new job candidates, you have to be really clear about who you're talking to. And fine-tuning, if you're using LinkedIn, fine-tuning your profile so you're speaking to that audience, right? You got to kind of get into what are their pain points? What is it you can do for them? How can you help them? Why should they listen? And that's really what you want to do there is really dig into the mindset of that customer persona or client avatar, however you want to phrase that. The other thing is, for us, it's really about focusing on quality, not quantity. I think a lot of people, when they look at social media, they start searching on LinkedIn, they see, oh my God, there's a million architects I can connect with. I'm not trying to connect with a million architects. I'm trying to connect with one. I'm trying to connect with a handful of people that fit my ideal kind of profile for the type of firm owner that I work best with, right? So really focusing on quality, being very narrow and niche rather than broad and generic is really important. The other thing that I've done and that I find works really well is make a list of people that you admire or who you think can help you connect you with your target audience. So for me, that can include people like yourself, like you're talking to architects. Mark is talking to architects. So I've made a list of those kind of people that I want to connect with, and I've reached out and connected with them. And I think that's key, right? You gotta figure out how you're going to grow that network, not just randomly selecting people and saying, oh, that person looks like they might be a good fit. You really got to do some research, get into the niche, and really understand who it is that can help you, and go after those people. Kind of, try to build a relationship with them.
Yeah. So for the architects listening, if it was me, I would just kind of brainstorm, like, who would I connect with? It would be all of the local and regional contractors that I admire is who I would connect with right away. I mean, that's an obvious one, right? Interior designers is another good one. Engineers is another good one. Just anybody that you work with and could potentially throw work back and forth. And I think you obviously have to have a carrot yourself, and that can maybe just come out when you guys have coffee eventually or something, and you say, hey, I'm looking for an structural engineer, would love to refer you work, and vice versa. So just to kind of cut to take that guesswork out of it for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all those things that you just mentioned are ideal, but also, like, it will depend on what kind of architecture you're interested in too. Like if you're going after like civil projects or institutional projects versus residential versus commercial. I mean, there's a lot of variation in there. So your targets might change as a result of that. But yeah, basically what you said is spot on.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So one other, let's thinking about lead generation. There's a couple other things I wanted to ask you about. Is like, I know you help a lot of architects with their web visibility and marketing and linking in with people, pun intended. In your experience, and when you work with other architects, how does lead generation work for them, and how are you trying to steer them towards that?
Well, first of all, I think that part that I mentioned, just identifying who it is we're trying to go after. That's going to determine a lot of the kind of the subsequent things that we do, right? But essentially, it starts with just that, really having a clear avatar or persona in mind that we're trying to target. We then we use LinkedIn. So when we use LinkedIn, there's a tool in LinkedIn that has a lot of power. It's a premium service to LinkedIn. You don't necessarily need it, but we like to use it because it expands the search categories that you can use in LinkedIn. So we can create a very detailed client persona or avatar and use that to kind of build a search profile in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and that allows us to kind of build our list of people that we want to try to connect with. The next thing we do is we start looking at that list. We go through it, we hand validate it, decide who on this list would be a good person to try to connect with, and then based on who they are, there might be one of a couple of different approaches. One of the ways I really prefer to try to connect with new people is to start by actually following them and looking at the things that they're posting. Maybe comment or like their posts, so they get that notification that Bryon McCartney just viewed or just liked your post. And I call that kind of the warming up stage, getting them used to seeing the name, right? And then eventually, after a few times doing that, what we'll do is we'll send them a connection request. And with that connection request, we're asking them or kind of telling them very clearly, hey, I want to connect with you. These are the reasons why I want to connect with you, and just briefly kind of make a brief pitch as to why we should be connected. So that's kind of the approach. Once we're connected, then we kind of start sending messages to that person to try to engage them, and eventually get them into a conversation. That's all we want to do at that stage, is start the conversation. Once we have that, once a conversation is established, we then start to move towards the idea of, hey, could we have a call, or could we meet? Could we talk further? And that's kind of how we take it offline. Does that answer the question?
Oh, 100%. I mean, honestly, it was beautiful. That's, and I just don't think it hurts to. I really like this idea of reaching out to people that you admire.
Yeah.
I haven't announced this yet, and by the time, I don't know when your episode is going to air exactly, but I reached out to John McAfee over the weekend, and I actually landed him as a guest on a podcast, and which is huge for me because he's very famous. He's a very famous man, and we'll be talking everything business, no politics whatsoever. But every week it seems like I got a retweet, an article I wrote got retweeted by Ashton Kutcher a couple weeks ago.
Awesome! Wow.
Bill Burr read my email because I emailed him. I just have to reiterate that to everybody. Just tiptoe your way into these relationships. I think it's brilliant the way you stated that, and then eventually, as you build a repertoire, you can finally get to that point of contact, meeting, and sort of mutual benefit for everybody.
Right. And I think it's really important to underscore this, especially in the architecture, engineering, construction space, right? This isn't kind of like an approach that's going to get you an overnight, you've got 100 job opportunities, right? And I want to be clear about that. I don't think there is an approach that can get you 100 job opportunities overnight in the AEC space. It's all about building your reputation and your relationships over time, and that's why this process works.
Last thing here before we kind of wrap things up is we hired a social media manager earlier this year, and she's doing a great job, but we honestly haven't seen any return yet. And my idea was I was going to try to give it like two quarters. And so one of the best things she's done, though, is that we now have consistent posts, and we are on all three big platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And I do most of the LinkedIn stuff. But if people are just starting out with places to try to find and attract prospective clients online, do you have a top three set of platforms, or just kind of some just general advice for where they should at least start?
Well, a lot of the clients that we focus on are in the commercial architecture space. So really B2B is what they're focused on. And we find that LinkedIn is by far the best platform for B2B relationship building. So for us, that's where we focus a lot of our time. I think Instagram is interesting. I think it has more value for other types of architecture, especially residential or maybe retail and restaurant type stuff that's more focused on maybe personal lifestyle or places that you would want to visit, that kind of thing. But we're looking into that for sure. I think back to your question though, where would you start, right? I think first and foremost, make sure that you're connected with all the people that are relevant to what you want to do in real life, right? This is what I find a lot of times is that when we start working with a client, they'll start talking about, we work with these people and we work with these people. And then I go to their LinkedIn profile and I see that they're not connected to those people. So it's really important as you're working with new clients, as you're working with new partners, make sure that you're connecting with those people on those social profiles, right, or those social networks. That would be the first thing. Specifically on LinkedIn, what we do then is we go in. LinkedIn has even the free version of LinkedIn allows you to go in and look at you're able to search what are called your second degree connections. So these are the people who are connected to the people that you're connected to. And you can search through those second degree connections and you can find, like if you're looking for contractors, for example, you could put in contractors and filter that by your second degree connections, and that will show you all of the contractors that your first degree connections are connected to. I always find that when you're trying to reach out to somebody, if you have an intermediary connection, if you're already connected to somebody they know, one, you can go to that person and ask them for a recommendation or an introduction. But two, they're just more likely to connect with you if you're already connected to somebody that they know. So that's kind of where I start. I think that's like just those tips alone kind of get you started on the road to making more use out of your LinkedIn profile. I think a third thing, make sure your profile is up to date. I see a lot of profiles without photos, without headshots, and I just don't waste my time. I mean, those people don't look like they're on LinkedIn. So, make sure your profile has a photo, at least a headshot, a clear headshot, so I can recognize you and remember who you were if I met you in real life. But also look at your profile. The main thing is the headline. So the headline is kind of that thing that appears just below your name. A lot of people use it for their job title. I use it for my value proposition, and it works really well because it says, I help architects, ... right? And so, and I also put a few keywords in there because that's also searchable. So I would say profile photo, headline, and then maybe your about section. I usually don't use that as a bio. I use that as an explanation of how I help architects. So it kind of completes the whole cycle of, like, if you go to my profile, you can know exactly what I do and how I can help you as an architect.
Yeah, the one thing I would add as a person who has noticed this trend happen in the last 10 years since I've been using LinkedIn is clients will look for you. The thing that and you should be prepared for that. So absolutely have a LinkedIn profile. I mean, and because as you know, Bryon, when people look at you on LinkedIn, you'll get a notification that sometimes it'll say it'll be vague and it'll say like somebody from the Denver metro area, but sometimes it'll say exactly who it is. And so be aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Some people can turn off the notification, or like they can kind of conceal their identity a little bit on LinkedIn. But a lot of people don't even know that exists. So usually you can see, like, if you've talked to a client recently, you can see if they're checking you out on LinkedIn. It's a really handy feature. In fact, I use it all the time. I'm like, oh, yeah, they just looked at us.
Yep. Yep. I know. I do it too. Exactly. Yeah, so that can't hurt. Well, Bryon, it's always a pleasure having you on the podcast. You are just chock full of knowledge, and I hope everybody got some benefit out of this. But if they would like to get in touch with you further, where should they go to follow and connect with you, and hopefully be looking to you to consult?
Yeah, I mean, the first place, obviously, go to LinkedIn and connect with me there. I make it really easy for people. So if you go to brilliantbryon.com, and my name is spelled a little bit differently. It's Bryon. I like to say Bryon with a yo. So if you go to brilliantbryon.com, that will take you right to my LinkedIn profile. You can also search for Brilliant Bryon on LinkedIn, and that'll pull my profile up as well. So that's a great way to connect with me. If anybody's listening to this, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll be happy, and let me know that you heard this podcast. I will be happy to send you. We have a little cheat sheet of free resources or different resources we work with on LinkedIn. There's some tools and different little Chrome extensions and things like that we use when we use LinkedIn. I'll be happy to share that with you. The other way you can connect with me is just going to our website. It's www.arcmark.co, not com, .co, arcmark.co. And that's our website. You can learn a little bit more about what we do there.
Awesome. Well, Bryon, you have a great day. Stay safe. Don't forget to wash your hands and keep doing great work.
I really appreciate it, Lance. Thanks for your time, and really glad to reconnect with you.
Absolutely. Okay. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on the iTunes app. Tip your barista, and we'll see you next week for more Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm.